Hey guys, before we make videos like this, we sometimes or often speak to our Japanese friends and family about the topic. It depends on the topic. Some topics it's better not to, just because they're sensitive, delicate topics, but topics like this we often do just to see what people's experiences are, because we know from what we hear and what we see, but we also sometimes ask questions just to find out a bit more. So in this case the question was, we've got friends that the youngest is, well, family members. Our youngest family member is 4 months old, and our oldest family member turned 100 this year. So we've got a fairly broad spectrum of family members and friends. So we asked some school kids we know, and we asked some adults we know, what are your experiences with bullying? And it was interesting because the examples that they gave were the really extreme examples. So the big kid walks up to the really little kid and just hits him in the head. That was one example. Or in the news recently, there was a story of a teacher bullying a male student into jumping off the balcony of a school building and breaking his leg. And of course, that was in the press because it was extreme. And a lot of those really extreme examples are the ones that they talk about because they're the ones that make it into the press. Or high school kids that are bullied by their peers until they kill themselves and that sort of thing. And that happens a lot. We actually mentioned that in another video recently. And the bits that we see on TV are only because they're dramatic. So a high school kid who jumps in front of a train or does something sort of high profile, jumps off an apartment building or jumps off a school building or something and kills themselves. And it's only if it's really high profile that we get to hear about it. And just, the usual cases that are happening all the time, we don't get to hear about the detail. All it is a statistic. There was 30,000 suicides a year. It's down to 25 or something recently, 25,000 a year or something like that. So usually we don't get to hear the details. So they're obviously the extreme examples of bullying where people are bullied to the point of suicide. And the only examples we were given were those extreme examples. Whereas no doubt most of you guys who live in other countries would have probably less extreme examples of bullying, where someone's bullied because they're overweight, or someone's bullied because, for a small reason like that. Sort of the usual sort of small, annoying bullying that some kids have to put up with, And having talked about that a bit more, the attitude about that sort of stuff was usually different. And this is what triggered this video. Is we see the extreme stuff on TV and the news of these extreme examples that are really, really bad. But we also see bullying. We actually see it. We see it in the playground. We see it just in amongst groups of people together, in the park, or groups of people out at a restaurant, or if you're observant and you watch the interactions between kids of different ages and between adults and people, you will see bullying here. You will see what would be considered to be bullying in other countries. And when we talk about that with our Japanese friends and family, their attitude towards it is it's not really bullying. And the reason is, now those of you who have seen all our previous videos would have recognized lots of the things we talked about. We talked about the kohai senpai thing, where everybody in Japan has a relative position relative to everybody else. So everybody's relationship with another person is either higher or lower, pretty much across the board. No two people really consider themselves to be equal. They all consider each other to be based on a variety of things. It's either the amount of time at the company, or your age, or how long, what grade you are at school, or there's all these different ways that they have to work out, very quite complex actually sometimes, working out everybody's position in relation to everybody else. And there's that system. And then a lot of you will recognize on previous videos we talked about conforming and not doing anything different, doing everything the way everybody else does it. And the way most people here, and again, all generalizations, we're talking about most people, the way most people here see it is if somebody behaves differently or does something differently or is is different to other people, then the group will push them back into line. And that's the way they see it. They don't see it as bullying. They see it as, well, that kid's doing something different, or he is different. That kid's overweight, so he's going to get some stick about it because, you know, he needs it. It's good for him because they're going to pressure him into losing weight, or you know, that kid's being hassled because he got low grades and everybody's teasing him about it, and that's going to encourage him to do better, and that's often the way they see it, and that's why we see bullying, because quite often, if you watch behaviours, you know, we've got family friends where the older kid will push or hit the younger kid and tell them what to do, and nobody says anything. You know, the parents just sort of let it slide. Nobody says anything, and you'll see in school groups too. If you watch a school group together, you'll often see the older ones pushing the younger ones and telling them what to do, and that's that senpai kohai thing again. And the teachers do nothing about it. The teachers use it because basically the teacher has said, okay, everybody do this, and then if anybody doesn't do that straight away, their senpai, their older friend or more senior friend, will make them do it. And you can imagine, I mean, obviously that system, and we see this all the time, where that system can be quite nice, where you get the older friend, the senpai is really kind to the younger person or the junior person, and they look after them really well, and that can be quite nice. And when you talk to some kids, they often talk about their senpai, and because they don't have one senpai, of course, everybody that's older than them and senior than is a senpai, but quite often they'll talk about their senpai as being really good to them and really kind, and, you know, I really like her, or I really like him, he's really kind, or she's really kind, or you'll see them helping each other, and quite often that's really nice. However, you can imagine giving children power over other children. You can imagine the problems that come from that, and particularly when it's unchecked. You know, when there's no sort of monitoring of it. You know, the end result can be, if one of your senpai happens to be an asshole, you can imagine your life could soon become miserable. You know, and of course there's kids here with issues, same as there's kids anywhere with issues, and suddenly they find themselves in a position where they've got power over others. And we've seen this in family groups where, you know, an older kid in the family bullies a younger kid in the family constantly, you know, and, you know, there's one kid I'm thinking of in particular who hits his younger brother and hits his mother, and they go, oh, no, dumb man, and really softly and basically let him do it, and so he continues to do it. He hits his little brother sort of randomly, and he hits his mother whenever she doesn't do what he wants her to do, and that's that kid. That kid's been brought up to think that he can hit people that don't do what he wants them to do, and that he's a little sort of a king, and his whole attitude just reeks of that, you know. And if you do say anything to him as an adult talking to a child, if you say something to him, he'll screw up his face at you and stick his tongue out if he wants to, or, you know, he's just a pretentious little monster basically. So, you know, anybody who's going to have him as a senpai at school or in their club or group or whatever in their family is going to have a horrible time, because he's a horrible little individual, and it's not his fault. He's a child, right? But it's because he's been allowed free rein to behave like this, and that's the way he behaves. And I mean, that's just another bit of an extreme example, but you can imagine that's not rare. You know, young boys in particular, you know, girls too, of course, you know, but you can imagine having you guys have experienced bullying in your lives. You can just imagine if it's not kept in check by parents and teachers. And again, the teachers just let it go, because from the teacher's point of view, it's sort of handy, because the teachers can sort of stand back and let the kids discipline each other, sort of thing, you know. The older kids are keeping the younger kids in check, and that sort of makes the teacher's life more easy. So they stand back and just let it happen, because it's all normal here. That's considered normal here. And the parents too. You know, the parents too. You know, in some societies, if the kid gets bullied at school, the parents would turn up at the school and say, hey, my child's getting bullied in your school, what are you going to do about it? And the school would do something about it, probably. But not in Japan. You know, the parents wouldn't want to rock the boat. you know, they're just going to tell the kid, oh, Gembaru, and because this is the problem, of course, is, you know, throughout Japanese society, this is what happens, you know, and because those little assholes that bully kids at school grow up to be bosses of companies, don't they, who bully their staff. And that's really common here too. You'll still see bosses lining up the staff and screaming and yelling at them. That's still not an uncommon thing to see in Japan, you know. And you hear these stories too about the boss is a tyrant, you know, who stands there and yells and rants and raves, and basically he's a bully as well, you know. And you'll come across them. We've talked about the truck drivers here. Truck drivers are terrible. Not all of them, of course, but a lot of them, they really think they do own the roads here, and they'll sit right up your tail and they'll hit the horn and they'll try and bully you out of their way. And you might be sitting at the speed limit or even just slightly over the speed limit, and they're wanting to speed to where they're going, so they'll be right up on your back end of your car trying to bully you out of the way. Hit the horn. If you don't get out of the way, they'll hit the horn, flash their lights, basically bullying you to the side, you know, and everybody just goes, oh, and they just move over. And so, you know, what is considered to be bullying here is only those really, really extreme examples, and the rest of it's just considered to be normal. It's just considered to be, that's how society sorts itself out. That's how society keeps everybody in line and keeps everybody doing what they're supposed to do. So it is hard to watch sometimes. It really is hard to watch sometimes, and parents bullying kids, not so common. Usually the kids get under-disciplined, if anything, but occasionally you will see an extreme parent here who really bullies their kids and pushes them, and not physically. The physical, I mean, obviously the mental bullying and the teasing and that sort of stuff is rampant because of the way the system works, but physical as well. I mean, the physical stuff's the stuff you see, of course. The mental bullying is a bit harder to spot, isn't it? Unless you're really close to people and you can see what's happening. You can see it then, you can hear it, you can hear the comments and you can hear what they're saying. But, you know, in a park or in a public place, in a restaurant or something like that, you can physically see the bullying, and it's hard to watch because you really want to go and say, hey, you know, stop hitting him or stop hitting her, or you really do. Sometimes it's really hard to watch it and not sort of say something. But again, you know, if you did, everybody would be consider that you're the problem, because even though the whole thing's about maintaining harmony, that bullying behaviour is actually considered to be part of the harmony. Those bullies, they don't call them bullies, but those people are maintaining the harmony by pressuring the other people to conform. And if you come along, the big foreigner comes along and says, hey, stop doing that, the Japanese people aren't going to understand that. Most likely they're going to say, what are you doing, upsetting the harmony? And you're going to be seen as the problem, not the solution. So it's a tricky one, it really is, because a lot of us, it's our natural reaction. If you see someone bullying someone else, so someone who has power over someone else, or someone who has a physical superiority over someone else, or some other way, it's the definition of a bully, isn't it? Somebody who has some sort of power over another person, you know, abusing that power. To us, it's just a morally bad thing, isn't it? And for a lot of us, it's a natural reaction to intervene, but it's really not the solution because no one's going to understand it, and it won't change it. That's the other thing with these things, is it's all very well at the time to make a big fuss and say, hey, leave him alone, but it's only going to be, all the focus will turn to you then. The foreigner is upsetting, is making waves, so the focus will turn to you for a moment, and then after those people leave, they're going to go back to doing exactly what they were doing when you intervened. It's not going to change anything. They're not going to go home, and this is what some people don't seem to get. You know, we get comments on videos all the time. I'd say something, I'd tell them that's not the right thing, I'd do this and I'd do that. But the people aren't going to go home and think about it and say, you know, that foreigner was right. That foreigner was right. We really need to reassess our whole way of doing things, you know. Our country really needs to reform because that foreigner has made a very good point. It's not going to happen. You're not going to change anything, you know. And again, we always get people that say, oh, that's not, you know, if someone said on one of our videos recently the same advice was given. Look, you know, it's not the foreigner coming to Japan and changing everything is just not going to happen. You know, it's and some people would argue neither should it. It's not our job to come to Japan and change stuff. The reason we make these videos is just to make you aware of these things that exist before you come, so that when you see them, you go, oh, I've heard about this. You know, that's why we make the videos. It's not a activist video hoping to change anything, because it's not our job to do that, and it's not going to work. It's not going to work. We made videos about this before. You know, they're not going to change things just because the foreigner tells them it's not right or there's a different way. And we had someone recently say, oh, if we had that attitude, you know, we wouldn't have our freedoms in America if we had that attitude, and all this sort of thing, like, you know, because the foreigners aren't in Japan fighting for our rights and freedoms, that Japan's somehow not going to have a free country or some nonsense. And it's just, if you want to believe that, that's fine, but you know, and if you want to come to Japan and try and change things, you can do that as well, but you're not going to change anything. You know, we've seen a million examples of that. We made videos about this all the time, that as much as people want to try and change things in Japan, you know, they can't, and neither should they, but you know, it's a waste of time. You just have to sort of accept it, and this is one of those things, and this is why this video was made, was because this is one of the hard ones. You know, some of the stuff here is a pleasure and wonderful, and some of the stuff here is a little bit difficult, and some of the stuff here is really difficult, and this one can fall into the really difficult category, because, you know, for some of us, it's our natural instinct when we see somebody suffering and someone causing someone some suffering, it's a natural instinct to jump in. And there'll be no doubt some white knights will be leaving messages, I'd say something, I'd do something. But the point is, doing something or saying something is not going to do anything. At that moment it might, you know, at that moment it might at that moment save some hassle, but it's only probably going to cause more hassle later on. If that older brother's hassling that younger brother, and you say something or do something or make a big deal about it, the heat's going to come onto you right then, and then later on, chances are too, that older brother, those obnoxious kids, if you come along the big foreigner and you tell that big kid to leave the little kid alone, he'll tell you to go away. The older kid will tell you, he'd be a 14-year-old kid, 12-year-old kid standing there looking up at you, telling you to go away. What do you want, foreigner? Go away. No doubt. And if you touch that kid or cause any hassle at all, they'll call the police, and the police won't understand. The police will turn up and say, what happened? Oh, that foreigner's come over and started hassling our son. That's what they'd say, and the police would take you off to the police station for 3 hours of questioning. No doubt. No doubt. You don't get seen as the hero. In a lot of people's minds, you know, in my country, if I stood up for someone who's being bullied, I'd be the hero. Well, yeah, that's quite possible. But not here. Not here, you know. You wouldn't be seen as the hero here. You'd be seen as a troublemaker. You know, for this foreigner, you know, we're sitting here in the park, and suddenly this big foreigner came up and started abusing our 12-year-old son. So our 12-year-old son told him to go away, and then he got really angry and started yelling at him, right? Just you know, you'd be back at the police station for 3 hours of questioning, and you wouldn't look like the hero, you'd look like a troublemaker. And it's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. And I mean, those people that come to Japan and teach, you know, as assistant language teachers and things like that, would have to put up with this all the time in classrooms. And there's not much you can do about it, you know. And again, there's always, whenever we say this, there's always someone that says, that's defeatist, you know, you just can't just give up and not do anything about it, and you have to do something. Well, if that's what you want to do, you can do that, and hopefully it'll have good results for you. But based on what we've seen and experienced and what we know, you know, it's not going to work. It's not going to change anything. It's not going to improve the situation. It's going to make the situation worse, and probably end up in some bad hassles for yourself as a result. And you won't come off looking like a hero. You'll just come off looking like a troublemaker. You know, so it's a tough one. Look, videos like this are always unpopular because it's a tough one. No one wants to hear this. No one wants to hear this at all, and everybody wants to try and do something about changing it. Of course, human nature. But this is one of those videos that, look out. When you come to Japan, you're likely to experience this, and it's going to be hard, and you just have to accept that it's just the way it is, you know. So, fortunately, generally this system does work very well, but unfortunately there's some aspects of the system like this that sometimes don't work well, and that's what's hard to take. So yeah, bullying in Japan. Spend some time in Japan, you will experience it. You will experience it, you'll see it or hear it, or you might even get some yourself. You know, a truck driver like that one might be hassling you one day. You might just experience it yourself, but likely if you spend enough time here, you'll see it. You will see it. So anyway, videos like this are unpopular, but because they're unpopular, they're important. You know, on YouTube, usually the most popular YouTubers don't make videos about difficult topics because they're not popular. People don't want to hear stuff like this. It makes them feel bad. You know, it's much better. If you want to be popular on YouTube, you've got to make videos about things that make people feel good, and they want to watch it, and they want to show it to their friend, and they want to show it to everybody because it makes them feel good. That's a popular video on YouTube. Videos like this are way unpopular. They get thumbed down. People think if they thumb down the video that will change something, which of course it doesn't. But yeah, very unpopular videos like this. But if we don't tell you, who's going to? You know, and if you come to Japan not knowing about this sort of stuff, when you see it, you might just react in the wrong way and end up in trouble. So at least if you've heard this first, you might still react in the wrong way and end up in trouble. But at least if you watch this video first, then in the back of your mind, when you see something happening, you might just think about this video and think, no, I'll just stay out of it. Just walk away, stay out of it. You're not going to change it. You know, no one else is going to understand. That's the problem. The parents, if you intervene, one kid's bullying another kid, the parents won't understand if you intervene. If they thought intervening was important, they'd do it. So if you come and intervene, they're going to go, what do you want, foreigner? Go away. They're not going to understand it. The other people watching aren't going to understand it. If you're with Japanese people, they're going to be really embarrassed. The police aren't going to understand it. They're just going to see a big drama and a foreigner in the middle of it. Everybody is looking at the foreigner. The foreigner is the cause of the problem. They'll take the foreigner away to the police station for an afternoon of questioning. Honestly, the police can keep you for a couple of days just for questioning. And it's the law here, and they will keep you for hours at a police station over some big scene like that. And they'll just put you away, and they'll bring you out and ask you more questions and put you away and bring you out again. All because you stuck your nose in where you shouldn't have, you know. So that's why, at least if you know this, you might remember that at the time. Or you might put your hand up and end up in a world of trouble. It's up to you. So anyway, there it was. More videos coming soon.